And a very, very good evening to everybody watching. Just give me one moment here, I'm just getting everything set up. Haven't streamed in a while, so I'm always a bit rusty when it comes to this stuff. If there's any complications during the stream, just let me know and I'll happily be able to correct it. Well, hopefully anyway. Okay, stream is fine, sound is fine, mic is fine, and you can hear the desktop as well. Let me just get the streams chat up and running. Perfect. So once again, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I've been wanting to stream for a while. I'm not the best streamer, to be perfectly honest. Creating videos is more of my forte, at least. But I really wanted to stream for this final bit of content, primarily just to have an interaction with everybody who's been watching my videos, but also just as a little friendly way of just getting to know everybody, and especially before Christmas. Now, this video is, well, this stream rather, is going to be broken up into two parts. The first part is going to be a live letter breakdown from a lore perspective. So I did this once before and people seem to enjoy it, so we're literally just going to watch through certain elements of the live letter. We're not going to spend too long on it, I'll skip through the scenes. But we're going to break down what we saw and everything that's in it from, as I said, a lore perspective. Afterwards, we're going to look through some of the videos that I created in the year 2022 and see where the actual subject has actually landed at this point in time. So I created videos months ago, for example, on future jobs, theories about what new content is coming out, about where the story is going to be going in 7.0, and so on and so forth. So I kind of want to break those down as well and see where they've landed now that we're months down the line and with 6.3 approaching. So I think first and foremost, just let me get settled here in terms of making sure everybody can see, everybody can listen. Okay. Just make sure everybody can see the chat, and let me see if I've got everything here. So the first thing we're going to do, which is how the live letter started this morning as well, is we're going to watch the trailer for patch 6.3 because it introduced a lot of lore elements, naturally, but it had me speculating. The moment I watched it and the moment it finished, I had like 50 different ideas flowing through my head because as much new content as I saw in it, it presented a number of new theories. But I think for the best thing to do first is to watch the trailer fully, and then I'll explain some of the elements that I saw, some of the lore elements that we're going to get, and we'll just go from there. So let me just end the music here for a moment. And the 6.3 website was also updated right after the live letter, so there's a bunch of new content there. I will go through as well, but I recommend you actually just plow through it as well. So volume's okay, chat is up. Okay, so let's begin and we'll watch patch 6.3, Gods Revel, Lands Tremble.
Peggy 16.
20 minutes.
At last the time is come.
Long have I awaited this moment.
Bear to me your lover's heart. Have you the strength to defy fate?
I, the Fury, shall test your strength of spirit.
My friends, 'tis good to see you again.
But enough about events here. What brings you to us? And with new company besides. The 13th. I thought you'd keep your escapades closer to home for a while.
Certainly.
Oh, I've been waiting so long. Don't disappoint.
How big must the gate be for their light to come through? Too weak. Help me. Someone. Please.
He's calling. What have you done to Ashdaya?
That world will never be ours again. So we need not suffer in this purgatory of death and rebirth forever.
A deluge of ether. The mark of a terrible magic.
Join me, and together we shall seek the promised land, a glorious kingdom of light, wherein all may know death's sweet embraces.
So, that was the trailer for patch 6.3, and honestly, it was a great trailer. I loved every bit of it. The music started off pretty well, and then the revelry all really started with the music that actually set in afterwards. I'm assuming that's going to be the battle music at the end of the upcoming Alliance raid. But this is a good place to start. So essentially, let's quickly break down some of the things that we saw in the trailer, because there was quite a lot now, to be honest. Good afternoon to you too, Cognate Summoner. So let me quickly mute this, put my music back on. And let's see. So it starts off with the twin moons of, I'm assuming, Menfina. Let me lower that, that's a bit too high. There you go. Okay, so it starts off the twin moons of Menfina, which is, she's the main moon, and then the hound that follows her, which we all know is Dalamud, and now no longer exists. But she essentially, she didn't inspire the faith, more than likely. So the faith is kind of pressed upon her. So she's the guardian of the twin moons, regardless of the fact that there's only one. The trailer was really good. I really enjoyed it. So it starts off the twin moons in her realm, I'm assuming, of ice, considering the moons are there. Then we start off by getting a glimpse of the new old gods, rather. So there's a few parts to break down in this. So the theory going forward, or starting with 6.1, judging by the order that the first 4 members of the 12 appeared, which was Baragot, Ralgar, Azema, and Nalthal. They all appeared in that order. And if you look at this image here, you can see that they appeared in this order, which is according to their 12 worship, essentially. So this is the books that are in every Eorzean classroom, essentially. So it started with Baragot, Ralgar, Azema, I keep butchering her name, I apologize, and then Nalthal. So this had everybody speculating, and it appears to be quite correctly so, that the next 4 were going to be Nuffiga, Altic, Halone, and Menfina. Which is correct. And my phone is pinging off. Off you go. And while it is correct, there is a couple of parts to break down in this. So the first one is, let me get my notes here because I can't read properly without my notes. Okay, there we go. Because I'm going to need to read these off now. So we get introduced to a number of members of the 12 in this trailer. And you can see that 3 of them are front and center. The first one here is identified as Menfina the Lover. I honestly expected Menfina to look a little different. I think it's her hairstyle that's throwing me off. It makes her look a bit more youthful. If she had different hair, she would have definitely looked a bit more mature. But I don't particularly mind that. It is a Japanese game in the end. Younger to represent the older or represent the lover is what it is. So we have Menfina front and center, and next to her is Altic. You can see him readily in the forefront here because of his hourglass symbol. Let me just get this here because I can't see the chat. I really should have picked a better interface for this. She looks very young. She throws me off, and her stare is a bit blank. Her eyes are a bit of a blank stare, but I'll come back to her. So we have Menfina, Altic, which you can easily recognize, as I said, by his symbol and also the mithril great axe which he's carrying around with him. Then we have another character here which kind of breaks the mold of the theory that the first 4 were going to be as we expected, because that person who shows up here is actually Nimia, the spinner. So you can tell it's Minia because, first and foremost, she's female. You can see the hint of a bosom here, and clearly a spinning wheel on the top of her head, but also her white cloak and her veil over her head, which is how she's described. So I'll read out her description here, or I'll just drag it over. Nimia is the watcher of celestial bodies and goddess of fate. She commands the element of water and is associated with the 4th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Nimia is the younger sister of Altic and master of Ralgar. She most often depicted as a weaver donning a white silken veil. Her symbol is the spinning wheel. So she's readily open there in her appearance. She looks rather youthful as well, but then again, they all look youthful aside from a few others. But she's apparently the master of Ralgar, who looks like the oldest of this pantheon that we've seen so far. It does look very elaborate. I mean, you've only a certain way you can go when you're depicting a spinning wheel, because we all know what a spinning wheel looks like as a thread and you're pushing it along. How do you make that look cool and on a headdress with somebody carrying it around? So this thing floating in the background, also looking like a bow or a mechanical bow, really kind of stands out in my mind. So I really love the design. Now, as I said, this breaks the mold a little because, as I stated before, we expected to see 4 of the 12 show up, which was Nofika, Altic, Halone, and Menfina. But I can't remember her name. I get nervous. Nimia breaks the mold essentially at this point. But the other 2 characters are actually here. So if you see just before it fades to black, you can see a character which is located here and a character which is located here. Now this character, or actually I'll start with this character first. I didn't know who it was at first, but she's easily identified later as Halone. So she shows up later and you can already identify her by her hair, which fades out into the black. But who I also want to focus on is this character here. Now, I mistook her for Halone at first, but Halone, despite the fact that she has spears on her symbols, she doesn't wield a spear in the trailer. She wields a sword and her shield. This character, I couldn't fully identify, which I'm going to fully identify now because I've frankly forgotten who it was. But we've seen a couple of characters. We've seen Nofika, But she doesn't look like Nofika. She doesn't have a scythe. This is not a scythe. This is a spear. But to me, it looks like something else. It looks like a long-bladed harpoon. I really need to clear up my... Happy holidays to you. I need to clear up my interface here. Now, I'm going to explain why I think this. I think it's Limion. I'm most likely butchering that, but I'm going off my Irish pronunciation. It makes me feel like it's Limion. Halone was jumping into my mind, but I've already identified her as Halone. This character is different. It makes me feel like it's Limion. Limion, Watcher of the Seas and Goddess of Navigation, is the guardian deity of Limsa Lominsa. She commands the element of wind and associated with the fifth moon of the Eorzean calendar. Limion is the daughter of Thaliak, and is the elder sister of Nofika. She is often depicted as a strong fisherwoman wielding a long-bladed harpoon. Her symbol is the wave. Who I identified as Halone is this character here. So there's 5 characters in the forefront here, which is a break from us, although technically there were 5 characters to start off, because Nalthal is technically 2 characters, but 5 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 3 we've identified right away, and Nemia being here breaks the mold of exactly who we're seeing. So it's broken the mold of us expecting that it was going to go in the order of 1 to 12 all the way around in a clockwise fashion. But we'll go into more of that now in a few moments, once we start breaking down some of the other elements of this trailer. We get a beautiful scene which looks very familiar to us as of recently because of the recent Savage. But it is a beautiful location, lots of farmland, lots of greenland. But then we break to happily the twins getting back in action with us again because we're whipping off to Garlemald. We got a nice snowy area for us to explore. It is winter after all. And people have been so excited for, if I could get a proper picture of the person. Never mind. That doll that people love. Yeah, that doll. People are so excited for that glamour of that doll. Which... Okay. Now, Garlemald is a place we're happily going to be visiting again, and we're going to be getting some exposition regarding the Reapers and Reapers in terms of Garlemald. But this is more than likely as part of the main story, so we're maintaining our presence on the source, and we're apparently investigating something. We don't know exactly why, but I'm assuming Zero is behind this. Also, you may have missed it, but Zero is apparently an all-rounder. So, depicted as a Reaper at first, although not a typical one, because she doesn't wield an avatar, she is depicted as a paladin in this picture as well. So, I'm frankly interested to see if she'll actually be a caster as well, or a healer. I'd be interested to see what her healer looks like if she has one. But since Alphino is a healer, I assume Alisaie would probably actually jump into a healer role as well. I thought the twins would be gone for almost all of 6. Dex so they could show up in 7.0 grown up. I still believe that, and I'll get into that later because I'm still a firm believer that there's going to be a time skip, and I really hope so. She has an interesting shield and she has an interesting sword, but the fact that she's an all-rounder, I'm assuming that's a Memoria trait. The fact that she can do that. But it's mainly her caster, if she has the ability to be a caster or a healer, that I really want to focus on later. Now, this threw a wrench into the works for me, because this is the new Eureka content, Eureka Orthros, if I recall the name correctly. And apparently we're going to be entering it, which I'm actually outside right now. We're going to be entering it at the same entrance that we used to enter the Crystal Tower. Now, Eureka Orthros is of elegant design. We don't know exactly what's going to be down there, but we can safely assume that it's underneath the what the hell is the name of it? The Labyrinth of the Ancients, or underneath the ruins of what we see around us, because underneath us, according to lore, all around us under Modona is the remnants of the Allegan Empire. So their old capital city, which is still unnamed, which I'll get into in the future, is under there, along with everything else. This Crystal Tower wasn't the center of their empire. Despite the fact there's a throne on the top, that wasn't Xande's throne. He had an imperial palace. So I'm not really sure why they called it Eureka. That's the weird part for me. I assumed Eureka we were going back to the Isle of Val, but apparently not. So I think they're just chiming in on the name Eureka and then naming it as a deep dungeon for some reason, but I'm assuming they're going to elaborate on that further. But according to the trailer, it is, as you can see, it's a vast Allegan facility. You can see the Allegan walls, you can see the Allegan technology all around, and a few interesting elements actually appear in here. This one being in particular, which is Kalia, which is one of Allegan Empire's last great inventions, essentially. So Kalia is something I'll actually get into next year because I'm planning an Allegan video of a different type, so look forward to that. But Kalia was designed essentially to fight in Mericidia. But her design is rather different because Allag used to design things specifically for function. But late in the Empire's reign, especially during the war, they started designing things in order to intimidate their foes. So they designed Kalia and the series that follows her to be an insult to Dragonkind and Mericidia. So that's why it's a Hydra. So facing one of these down in Eureka Orthros is pretty exciting, and we saw there's multiple claws and other elements walking around this place as well. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot of lore about Eureka Orthros, but sadly we don't get any more, but we get a bit more in the live letter. Now, we can see her back in her Reaper form. She is cutting down a bunch of Void Scent, which we can still see we're in Garlemald. There's not really much to say about this instance other than the fact that we see a bunch of elements like... This is interesting. I'm not really sure what to make of this, but we can easily see that this is a shard of Dalamud, and this is Dalamud breaking up. So I'm assuming this is something to do with the Ultima Raid, or it's just a depiction in Eureka. I can't really say for sure. But what's happening here at this point is you can see her hiding a bunch of Void Scent, and then you get this depiction from her. Let me mute the music real quick just so we can listen to her again. So let me just go back and...
Too weak.
Too weak.
Help me.
Help me.
Someone.
Someone.
Please.
Please. And down she goes. I'm fairly certain that's Zero talking, but it doesn't fully sound like her. So it threw me through a loop. I'm still convinced it's Zero, but it's out of character for her. She was usually very cold and a very state specific, and she never asked for help either. I mean, she'd owe people other than that afterwards. But it's a very weird thing, but also the fact that this is the second time we've seen her faint, and we don't really know why. So I'm assuming there's something else going on with Zero that we don't know about. I'm assuming it's probably due to the overuse of her Memoria abilities that causes her to pass out like this, but she's on the source now. Passing out like this is not really a good thing, I assume. So we see that, and I'd say we're not going to get any info about it till later. It doesn't sound like her, but it's possible a different character, because this trailer, I noticed right off the bat, the voices and the voiceovers are mixed up in multiple ways. Like, you hear tracks from the deities of the 12, being played during main story cutscenes, for example. So it's all just jumbled up, so you kind of have to piece it together. But I can't think of anybody else who'd ask something like that. And they don't usually voice over the Alliance Raid dialogue except in the fight itself. So yeah, I assume she's sick or there's something wrong with her. But we can only wait and see, I assume. Now, Vitra doing his little stunt here was interesting. So you see him do this, and then he roars up, and then he's calling. So that's a question. He's standing on top of Megaduta, roaring out like a mad person. The question is, who's he calling? If you were going to assume, well, he's on the source, so he might be getting frustrated and trying to call out to Azdaia again, but he knows she's not on the source anymore, so I don't think that's going to work. But it's entirely possible he's calling out to his siblings. So they're out there, we know they are. So he could be calling out to them because he knows the situation is dire. It's only fair that his siblings get involved. I mean, they are Azdaia's brother and sister as well, Hraesh Valgar and Tiamat. So it's only right that they get involved as well. We know Midgard Somer's not going to go anywhere. But it's entirely possible he's calling out to them, or he's trying to reach Azdaia in some way. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. So he calls out, and then we get our picture, which is making me doubt myself now, because take a look at the side. So the scythe is definitely a depiction of Noffiga, the matron, because she wields a scythe. And she has dominion of the element of earth. So we knew she was going to be here, and then we have Halone as well. So I think those are the 5 that we saw. But the question is, why 5? Matron's teats. She is a gorgeous character. We haven't seen her face, unfortunately. Well, we have seen it, just a slight glimpse of it. But she is a lovely character. This is how I expected Benfina to look, to be perfectly honest. I expect her to look more mature. But we gotta spin around. We're running up towards her domain. She starts fighting us at this location here. We don't get a look at her face, do we? I don't remember. No, we don't. Then we end up in Menfina's domain with the 2 moons, and then we get face to face with our main character, baddie, Golbez. I'd assume that some aren't going to be fought. That is a good point. Because we only get 4 fights. Unless a 5th one is going to be sitting around watching us. But I want to understand the reasoning for us fighting them now. Because we had a valid reason to fight them the first time. They threatened to essentially enslave our world unless we knocked them back, which we did. And now I'm assuming this is just another test for some unknown reason. They haven't deigned to tell us what the hell their reasoning is in regards to why the hell they're doing this. But this will all come to a head, in my opinion, towards the end of this trailer. So I'll get back to that. So we have Golbez doing his little strut here, and then we have one of the duties which is going to be added. So a number of the fights, or a number of the duties in Heaven's Ward are getting... I love the fact that he's in one of the duties as well. I hope he is. Calcabrina, and then you have the Eureka, which more elegant technology. I have no idea what the hell this thing is. This thing is really weird. I love it, but... And then you have the Loporiths, and then... I'm just cutting through this from a lore perspective because I want to get to the main thing here, which is they're on Megaduta, and then this happens. A deluge of ether, according to Y'shtola. My first thought when I saw this is it's a weird color. Usually when you see ether erupt in any way, shape or form, or when it's transferred, it's usually in a blue or whitish color. This is a very different color. I've no real explanation as to why this is, because they're in Megaduta looking at this. So this is happening outside of the city's bounds. But we have no explanation as to exactly what it is. You're actually correct. It actually does look like a Mandragora. I'll get back to him then. I'm frankly curious as to what this is. Could this be the reason that Vitra was roaring? Or could this actually be Golbez? Because one of my primary theories, and a theory that a lot of people agree with, is that Golbez is going to wage a war, or his promised war is going to be waged against the Source. And this could be him actually breaching the veil between the worlds with a deluge of ether. Actually, now that I think about it, it's entirely possible that he used Ashdai's ether in order to open this, and that's why Vitra was yelling. Because he sensed what the ether was right away, and then he was like, oh no. Seems also the same colors. That's a very good point. It is. It's a very similar color to the Flood of Light. That's a good catch, yeah. It could be something escaped. That's actually a good point as well. It could be something from the Void Gate. So the Void Gate has... They were aware of it even before we widened it. So I think it was important to their plans, but they never really did anything with it. But it's entirely possible that that Void Gate is going to be their entry. But that's enough on that one. Now we see Manfina doing her fight choreography here. And then you have Halone wielding her sword, and then you have Nemia casting her ability. So we're fighting her, so she's one of the fights. So we're going to miss somebody. Who have we seen so far? So let's see here. We've seen Nafika on the field. We've seen Halone on the field. We've seen Manfina. The only one we haven't seen on the field, and we've seen Nemia. The only one we haven't seen on the field is Altic, the keeper. We haven't seen him. We've seen the others, but we haven't seen him. So I'm assuming the 4 fights are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And he is watching, I'm assuming, or just being a weirdo. I don't know. He seems like a very go-to guy when it comes to fighting, so it's weird that he's not fighting us. But that's enough on that. Okay, back to that. So I only see one of them. So this is our group, and then this is Nemia. I don't think there's anybody else in this picture. Oh, ooh. Okay, so there's Halone. Oh, hang on. There's somebody else there. Let's see this. Yeah, there's somebody there. Although that could be a mirror image of her. Although they're holding their hands differently. Did they show up anywhere else? No. I think it's a duo fight. Huh. Because... Alright, here's my theory then. Alright, so Nimi is there. The other character is here, but they're too shrouded for us to actually see. I think that's Altic. Because we've already seen Altic in the trailer. We haven't seen a fight with him. But Altic is the sibling of Nemia. So these are both siblings. So I think their fight might actually be both of them. So we might be fighting both of them at once. I'll go through it here. So let's see. Yeah, Altic is the elder brother of Nemia, according to scripture. Although this is scripture that we wrote, or the Eorzean citizens wrote. So we don't know if this is actually true or not. It's entirely possible. We saw Nal Thal were joined at the hip, so... But I'm going to assume that this is definitely Aldic. So I think it's going to be a duo fight with the two of them. Which I'm really looking forward to now. Especially because of this. This looks really cool. Although it makes it look like a carbon copy of the Nal Thal fight, to be honest. With the two of them casting at the middle and then blowing it up. I mean, it looks cool, but it makes it look like a carbon copy of the last fight. Which I don't really agree with. So they're casting and then boom. And then there's Helone doing her usual stuff. Then we cut to Golbez and his dialogue. Let me actually play his dialogue now because this is something to address.
The promised land, a glorious kingdom of light, wherein all may know death's sweet embraces.
A promised land of light where all may know death's sweet embrace. That could mean one of multiple things, but I'm assuming Golbez is chasing death, essentially. So, as we know in the Void, aka the 13th, people can't die, or Void Sent themselves can't die, they just dissipate and then they come back because of the nature of what darkness is. He could be seeking light in order to bring an actual end to people, essentially, in the 13th. It may be due to he wants to show compassion to allow people to pass on. I don't think he really cares about the world because he stated that this world would never be what it was early in the trailer. But there's one thing about him that's really... Well, we have a lot of questions about Golbez. One of the main questions is this. So, we all remember seeing this image in patch 6.2. You see this in Golbez's dialogue when he's monologuing about his plans, yada yada yada. And you see him doing battle, or apparently trying to execute, maybe, this hooded figure here. Now, there's a lot of questions about exactly who this is and what is happening here. Now, Golbez is a powerful character. We can tell that obviously because he captured Azdaia. But we don't exactly know what is going on here. There's a lot of theories. One of the primary theories is people think this is the Watcher or a Watcher. And Golbez struck him down because people think that this is the seal of Zodiac behind him. So I have an image of that somewhere as well, I think. Yeah, here. So people think that this is the seal, which it kind of looks like it. If you look at the shapes, and you look at the shapes of these lights here, it does make it seem like it's one of the seals for Zodiac. Although the Watcher is very much alive, as we already know. It does look like a Litibus. So there's a number of theories about what this is. So one is the Watcher, which I don't really subscribe to unless you subscribe to a different theory, which is that Golbez fought and slew the Watcher of the Moon on the 13th, as it originally was. Because we know there's multiple moons. Because the Source has a moon, the First has a moon, we can assume the 13th has or had a moon. So this could be Golbez slaying the Watcher of that moon. One theory postulates that Zodiac his main body was sealed on the Source, or trapped in the moon specifically. But it's theorized by many that the moons of the other reflections all had a piece of Zodiac contained within them. So this could entirely be possible that this is the moon on the 13th. This seal behind him is sealing an arm of Zodiac, for example, like a piece of him. And this is the Watcher of the 13th, because the Watcher is a creation. So Hydaelyn could have easily created 14 copies of this guy. So you have 1 on the source and then you have 13 on the reflections. But it's still speculation because we don't know specifically what the information is regarding the source and the reflections. We don't know where the reflections are, how they occupy space, if they occupy space at all. But that's a subject for another time, I think. So back on the other theory is that people would think this is Elidibus. It's entirely possible it was. This could have been Elidibus on the moon of the 13th. Because we know what happened, that during the fall of the 13th, as it became the Void, Elidibus went to the 13th and he rescued a number of individuals. Their names escape me, but he rescued a number of individuals and brought them to the First and the Source in order to be, well, for his grand plan essentially. But he did go there. So it's entirely possible Golbez faced off with Elidibus at this point. Or it could have been that Golbez was seeking maybe a shard of Zodiac, for example. And Elidibus went to the 13th and went, you stop what you're doing right now. You can't touch that. You're not allowed. There's so much speculation. But if I was a betting man, I'd say this is definitely Elidibus. I'd say he faced off against Elidibus at one point. Elidibus knocks him back, and Elidibus escapes the Void before it becomes the Void with his cargo or passengers, essentially. So Golbez could be pissed off by the fact that Elidibus and his kind, essentially, let the Void happen. And then he just comes in, rescues a couple of people, looks at Golbez and goes, I'm not taking you with me. See you later. Flies off. So this is why Golbez is pissed in this image. So that's entirely possible what that is, but I think we're going to find out in the next patch 6.3 exactly what this scene is. But it could end up explaining a lot, particularly why Golbez is as powerful as he is. But let's go on to my last thing, because I've spent a lot of time on the trailer, but the trailer is the meat of the live letter anyway. But essentially, I want to break down this before anything else. So actually, let me play it again. So everything fades out, and then you have the name of the patch that comes out. So it fades in. Then you have the 2 images of Warrior of Light, and you have 0. You have the Alliance Raid on one side. You have the Crystal Tower on the other. And the title of God's Revel, Lands Tremble. Now, do you see the way the 2 titles kind of meet up at this point here? And then it glows. As soon as I saw that, for some reason, the first thing I saw was Limion, which is a member of the 12. So it's... Alright, actually I have a link to her here. Give me a second. So, Limion, the deity of Limsa, known as the Navigator. So you have a depiction over here. She jumped into my mind the moment I saw this 2 L's going off, because her name starts with 2 L's. I don't know why, but it just struck me like that these 2 just glows up like this. But this title of this patch has been bugging the hell out of me ever since I saw it. The background, yeah, as you can see, it's like, yeah, earth and ice. That's exactly what it is. But they're depicting it in 2 different ways as well, because you have the Alliance Raid content and you have the Eureka content at the side as well. So it's a clever way of doing it, that you show earth and ice, but also Alliance Raid, Eureka content. Now, it's the title of the patch itself that is bugging the hell out of me. And I'll tell you why. So the title, God's Revel, Lands Tremble. So two different titles, essentially making one title of a patch. It states that the God's Revel, which, if I've got the definitions, I had to really define it here. So if you define revel, it's a verb to enjoy oneself in a lively and noisy way, especially with drinking and dancing. I think the first part is definitely akin to us. So enjoy oneself in a lively and noisy way. These members of the 12 seem to enjoy themselves at our expense, so the gods are reveling during the Alliance raid. Lively and noisy enjoyment, especially with drinking and dancing, or in our case, with fighting. So they're enjoying themselves doing that. So as the gods revel, the lands tremble. Why do the lands tremble? That's the good question though. So as the gods are reveling, the lands are trembling. But there's multiple ways you can look at this as well. So the gods revel, as a result, the lands will tremble. But why call it lands tremble? I know it kind of rhymes together, which is nice. But I think there's more to it than that. Because tremble, making the lands tremble is like making the people of the land tremble. Fear. Because you wouldn't akin a land like earthquake shaking with trembling. I don't think anybody's ever said that about an earthquake, or like you say tremors or rumbling, not tremble. It's a good way of just saying it, but I have a feeling there's just more to it than that. I think they're just hinting at it, just saying, as the gods are reveling above, in their realm above, the lands are trembling below, the people are in fear below. You're a little bit drunk? It's the time, it's the holiday, you're allowed to drink. So, let me have a drink here myself. Yeah, the title has just been bugging the hell out of me because of that. It could easily just be a way of just saying, right, the gods are reveling in one part of this patch, but at the same time the lands are trembling in the other part of this patch. But it had me thinking about a lot of different things. Like, for example, the 12 were around long before the Allegan Empire, for example. They were apparently hovering in their location above where the Allegan Empire was. Apparently the Allegans knew nothing about the 12 that we know of. The gods revel and the lands tremble. We know how the Allegan Empire ended. The calamity of Earth, and their entire empire was sank beneath the earth. But this title just to me means a lot of things, but it's mainly just the linking of the two with the two L's makes me think of Limion, and the fact that Limion appears in the patch as well as one of the fights within this, or actually no, she doesn't, does she? No, she doesn't. Sorry, that was my mistake. Limion doesn't appear, but for some reason, I don't know why it is, these two L's just made me think of her. So she doesn't appear in the fights that we think of, although she is related to Nafika, who does appear. But I don't know what it is, this title just made me think of her. I'm not really sure why, it's bugging the hell out of me. If you have any opinions on that, just let me know. But essentially, this is the trailer. I've spent like 40 minutes or 45 minutes breaking down the trailer, but the trailer was the meat of it. So let's move on to other things now, because I want to move on to part 2, which is the main part of this. Now, oh, don't tell me this is not going to work now, is it? Okay, it's working, okay. Okay, so there's a lot of breakdowns in terms of the content here. I don't recognize this guy. If he's somebody, I don't recognize him. He could be related to something else. He could be related to the rebuilding efforts in Garlemald, for example. But this is not really much to talk about. We don't really get much information on the Hildebrand storyline, other than the fact that we know it's going to be, more than likely, we're going to be running old content, as we always do. Nothing wrong with that, but further Mandeville weapons, you have Geralt jumping. I'm going to assume that's a mammoth. Don't know why, though. I don't even know where this is. Now, where's the other bit that I wanted to discuss? Oh yeah, so the new trial, or the new dungeon, which is called Lapis, which I think has something to do with ice. Lapis Manalis, which is a very wintry location, which I'm very happy about as well. So I'm looking forward to that. The Wyrm, I think that's how you pronounce it. was giving me really, like, I think the first time I saw this, I was like, Windows XP. Like, do you remember that Windows XP background? This is what this reminds me of. Windows XP background. And it looks beautiful. Like, if I can get a screenshot of that, I'd be happy to make that my background. Now, there was a part here where he was messing around in something. In order to try, where is it? He was messing around in, well, this is in Kugane for the new crystalline conflict, which we're all happy with. A lapis manalis was either of 2 sacred stones used in the Roman religion. That's interesting. You have to look that up. Was either of 2 sacred stones used in a Roman religion? Huh. I wonder if we'll get any more Roman influences then in this upcoming content, because I know Garlemald and the legions and everything else have heavy Roman influence. So the fact that lapis manalis is actually something from Rome as well is interesting. So I look forward to actually learning more about that, because, as I said, Garlemald is heavily based on Rome and the Roman Empire. Alright, so we see Yoshi P is here running through. We got to look at some of the gear actually as well, don't we? Which is I really like this set. That's a really nice set. There's not really much left to break down from this. I have a question. Did the last ultimate require you to beat the Savage before it? I don't really do ultimates, so I don't really remember. But this one, apparently you need to beat the current Savage tier in order to be able to unlock it, which is good. I like that. It makes me wonder what this fight exactly is going to be. Although I'm not looking forward to Starboard, Larboard again. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of that. This part is interesting because this is new treasure maps which are located in Elpis, which I really like the sound of that. The fact that this is located in Elpis. And Elpis is something I've had a lot of theories about for a while now. Yeah, the last one needed P4S. Okay, so that makes sense. Yeah, I like the fact that they need to unlock Savage in order to do it, which means I won't be doing it because I haven't been the current Savage yet. The fact that the new maps are in Elpis though is interesting to me, but I'll break that down in my next content to come because I did go through it in a recent video. But I don't think there's much more for me to actually go through in terms of this because it's primarily the trailer I want to go through. But Eureka Orthros is something I'm really curious about. So a dungeon whose architecture changes so each time the players enter to explore, which is the same as any other deep dungeon. Players must first complete the main scenario quest Endwalker and progress to floor 50 of the Palace of the Dead. Okay. Must be level 81 or above to enter. Entry available to groups. Yeah, okay, we get that, we get that, and we get that. Right, show me the meat. Where's the meat? Accept the quest from Ko Rabata in Mordona. This is a name I haven't heard in years, but I immediately recognized it for one reason. So let me... Oh, I hate the way the camera does that. Okay. Let me go through Mordona real quick. Because this is an interesting character that completely got overlooked afterwards. And it really annoyed the hell out of me why it was overlooked. So, Ko Rabata is this young lady right here. Although we could technically call her a male. She looks pretty strange. Now, if any of you know who this character is, or you don't remember, I won't be surprised. But Ko is... Well, she was a researcher, or is a researcher of St. Connacht's Find. However, she picked up an artifact during A Realm Reborn, and she became inhabited by the mind of... Yeah, she's a possessed cat girl. She became inhabited by the mind of an Allegan. So we have access to a... Well, right now living and breathing Allegan inside the mind of a Makote, but an Allegan nonetheless. She's right freaking here and we've never used it. The fact that it's getting utilized now, thank God, because it's been annoying the hell out of me that an Allegan is standing right here with the answers to so many questions and yet we never talk to her. Alright, so let's go through our dialogue real quick. All it says it should be. People running to and fro with their own concerns and free from the shadows of the past. Wait. She has more dialogue than this. I'm sure she did. Hang on a second. Let me go through my archive. I picked up her dialogue a while ago. Maybe it's in the quests only. Let me see. Let's see. NPC dialogue. Co. Maybe it's in the Crystal Tower arc, is it? Let's see. I started getting into the habit of taking down the dialogue of every quest I do. Mainly because I end up referencing it. So, Co, are you here? Co, there we go. You see Co Rabita. Well, you have found the right body, but she is not at home, so to speak. Let me turn my chat back on. So, this lovely girl you see before you is known as Co, but another soul dwells within her at present. Mine, to be precise. You are speaking with none other than Noah, Archmagus of Alag. My scholarly works are legend, my treatise of the cosmos priceless, and my very name known throughout the world. Or, 'twas so once. My soul has whiled away the millennia within an orb. Co awoke me from my slumber and, well, how could I pass up the chance to walk the world again? So I allowed my spirit to flow into her body and here I am. I mean, it's annoyed me. I'm just going to state it what it is. It's pissed me off. The fact that Noah is right here and we've ignored him for years. It's really annoyed me. We have access to so much, like this person has access to so much information that we want. And we can't get it out of her. But I'm glad that they're actually getting involved in the content again, because they are involved in Eureka Outros. So I'm assuming they're going to be our guide to going down there. So it's entirely possible they have information regarding what this facility is. Noah is, if you're curious what Noah is the organization that is actively exploring and researching the Crystal Tower. The organization itself within St. Connach's Find is called Noah. So our expedition into the Crystal Tower with all of our allies, that's Noah. It was named after Noah, but... yeah, I know. Graha would be the first to latch onto this. Like, he'd love to know this. Or Noah would love to know about Graha. But apparently Noah just is happily standing on a corner smoking a pipe. What was the name of the random Allegan who did the research on primal influence? Oh, I can't remember his name. Only his work survives. Let me get out of Mordona because it sounds like a war zone. Up we go. Okay. I can't remember his name for the life of me. Sorry. I'll probably remember it later. So, with the addition of Eureka Outros, previous quests associated with Ko Rabitan, but I hardly know it, and the Gift of the Archmagus will be removed. But I hardly know it, I think, is the opening quest, and then the Gift of the Archmagus is the one that comes after. So that's the one that she currently has right now, which, if I recall correctly, was clear all 3 of the Alliance raids. And your gift was Allegan Catalyst and Aether Royal, which were pretty important back in the day, which are now not important. So now apparently she's not going to offer these quests anymore. I'm going to assume they're going to get some Noah researcher or St. Connach's Find researchers to take over that quest, if anybody at all. because those two elements are easy to obtain, if I recall correctly now. But it's good to see Ko coming back into it, or at the very least Noah. I feel bad for this girl, to be honest, because I doubt she asked for this. I mean, somebody's soul and somebody's mind literally goes into you and latches into you. But the fact that Alag were able to do that as well is interesting, because rip all the people doing the Heavensward relic weapons. I'm assuming they're just going to give it to another NPC, you know? But I think the reason they're using Ko specifically is because Ko is going to have, or Noah, I keep calling it, right? Noah is going to have knowledge and experience related to this. Or that even may be, oh no, it's not our entrance, because the entrance is at the Crystal Tower. But it's good that Ko Rabita is getting utilized. So I'm hoping that this is going to lead us to learning so much more about the Allagan Empire, because we know so little about the Allagan Empire. I mean, there's so much that is available, but we just don't have the information. I'm piecing it all together for a different video right now, but the research is becoming very hard. I was supposed to do that video this month, but it was just becoming so complicated. Like the research, when you're researching Allag, it's like a hornet's nest. But on we go. Now, let's see here. Yeah, so we see him knocking around in the first floor of Eureka. I love the fact that this is coming. I can't wait for these. I can't wait for this. Everybody's so excited about this. So he jumps down in here. The first thing he encounters is the metal claws, which are originally an invention of Allag, but the Garleans copied later. Owen, that's it. Owen is the person who researched primal tempering. Thank you very much, Dan. There's Void Scent down here as well, which is interesting. So we have a combination of Void Scent and old Allagan machinery, which is still operational, as it always is when it comes to the Allagans. But the mixture of it down here is interesting. It makes me wonder what's at the bottom of this, and does it actually... It likely won't tie in, because these sort of content rarely tie into the main story. But it makes me curious if there's something down here that will answer questions that we're asking about the lore of the main story. Or if there's just something interesting lying down here that we just don't know about. But there's multiple Void Scent walking around, and these metal claws, and a Kalia unit is down there as well. So there's a lot of stuff down here. So I look forward to exploring Eureka Ortros in full. Now then, oh yeah, Leap of Fate. Corgi, hello Corgi. The greatest announcement to come out of this entire live letter, which has nothing to do with lore, but Rand knows what I'm talking about, I know you do, was this announcement. So, as you know, Japan got the orchestra concert about 2 weeks ago or something like that. And Europe and North America were pretty peeved about it because we still haven't gotten a Eurasian concert, not for a few years now. But happily, Christmas came early. We're getting concerts in both Las Vegas and London the day after FanFest. So FanFest just got double the hype, because we literally go through FanFest, we'll get an orchestrated event on day one, more than likely, as we'd always do with FanFest, and then we get the Primal concert on day two, and then the day after that we're getting the Eorzean Orchestra concert for the Eorzean Symphony. So I, for one, am mega hyped about that, and I can't freaking wait. I need to do my hotel booking and everything else, because that threw a wrench in it. But that's it in terms of what we have for the live letter, essentially. Rip wallet. Yeah, damn right. I'm going to be buying everything at FanFest, and then I have to buy everything at the concert, so... I've already put an account together in order to just put money in every month, so I think I'll be alright. Alright, so on to part 2 of this video. I'm just going to go through the subjects of all the videos that I've uploaded in 2022. I've uploaded a number of topics, a number of discussion pieces, and a number of lore videos on a wide range of topics. So I just want to quickly explore them, just to see how they've aged in the last few months, and also just recognize those topics. So the first video I uploaded in 2022 was They Said What? So my NPC dialogue changed in Endwalker. I went through, literally going through all the NPCs, or most of them anyway. Thank you very much for the stream. Big fan of your lore videos. Still very pleasant to listen to. July Wind, I'm very happy to have you here, and I'll try and talk as slowly and as precise as I can. I'm actually in the process of reinventing myself in terms of my speech, so I'm hoping you'll be able to understand everything I'm saying, but I'll try and talk as quiet and concise as possible. Yeah, I'm actually going through a bit of a thing right now that I actually only realized a few weeks ago, that I actually have a speech impairment, and I never even realized I had one, where I stress my S's. So I'd be like snake, where it's like snake. So I'm not really supposed to be doing that. That's apparently a speech impairment, and I had no idea I was doing it. So I've been working for a few weeks in order to try and curb it, but according to everything I've researched, and I actually talked to my doctor as well, curbing a speech impairment like mine, or just a standard one, can take years. So it's allowed me to focus on a lot more what I'm saying, because I think about what I'm saying a lot more now. Or it's mainly working on just trying to eliminate this impairment, which my impairment is my tongue keeps trying to go through my teeth. Essentially, it's parcel tongue, yeah. So whenever I'm saying something like the 19th, so when I used to say it, my tongue was coming out of my mouth, which is not something it should be doing. My tongue should be staying behind my teeth. I nearly said teeth there, so I'm still working on it. But this is also why I'm drinking all my drinks through a straw, because it encourages the muscle movement of keeping the tongue behind my teeth. So you'll probably hear me talking a bit weird, mainly because I'm really focused on what it is in order to try and stop me from doing my S's a bit. But anyway, on with the video. So They Said What is my first video, and arguably one of my most popular, because it actually is my first trending video actually. Everybody was interested in what the NPCs were saying after Endwalker. And one of my favorite pieces about this video, which I'll quickly just bring up here. Now I did break everything down. Where are you, my boy? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? I've probably passed by his name. So Dragu, there you are.
Well, aren't we?
This is easily my favorite dialogue out of the entire thing, because Sidragu is literally just going, look Wyrm, if you're coming to me looking for some nice jewels of knowledge or some new Dark Knight art, you can just forget about it. You've easily surpassed me in terms of the Dark Knight art and so on and so forth. He goes on this massive dialogue of just saying, stop coming to me, I have no pearls of wisdom to give you. Figure it out for yourself. And I realized as soon as I read that, I was like, he's right. It's up to us now. We're the ones reinventing our arts. The flashy new abilities that we had in Endwalker weren't taught to us. We taught them ourselves. We created them. And we're going to be etching them on our soul stones for our descendants to wield in the future. So all the other dancers, all the other Dark Knights that come after us, they're going to be learning these arts from the Warrior of Light. So I really enjoyed this video. Everybody else enjoyed it as well, which is really nice. This video I actually made in December right after Endwalker, which was a quick review of the immersive audio. I don't think the creators of that were really happy about this video, because I called out the system itself because it doesn't really work that well in the game, to be perfectly honest. But enough about that. Let's see. My most popular video definitely was the Worlds of Endwalker, which was also started off as my most controversial video, because I actually did a big spoiler just saying the World's Meteon Encounter. That was its original name. That was a major spoiler. I didn't really mean to be, but I just didn't really consider it because people wouldn't know who Meteion was. But it is what it is, which is why I changed it to what it is right now. This video has aged rather well because we learned a bit more about the worlds that Meteion visited, but we didn't learn a massive amount. Like, for example, we learned the names of the civilizations, thankfully. Like the Grebaloofs, which are the little Namazu looking guys, which are kind of weaselly looking creatures. The Carlians, or what's it? The Carillions, sorry. Which sounds like a name from Star Trek, to be perfectly honest. Those are the citizens and the resistance soldiers that are constantly messing with each other. And then the Nibiru, which are the weird horned immortals wearing the masks. So, I'm glad you enjoyed that video because this is one of my favorite videos, to be honest. Shut up, Rand. Rand's just taking the piss out of me, never mind him. But yeah, it's one of my favorite videos, but it's also my second trending video, which really put my channel on the map. So I'm really appreciative of this video in particular because it was received so well. So I worked hard on that one in order to make it as informative as possible, and it's aged rather well. I think towards the end of Endwalker, I may do a part 2 of this video, primarily just to fill in the gaps of what we've learned about the civilizations that Meteion did encounter, like the Ia, for example. I've so much to go through about the Ia because we learned a lot about them with the new content that came with the tribal quest, but I won't spoil too much if you haven't seen it, so look forward to a video on that though. Now these two, Thancred and Dynamis, and Dancers and Dynamis. So Dancers and Dynamis was my video to state that Dancers have actually been manipulating Dynamis and fighting the effects of Dynamis for a very long time. So a well-received video, and a video that still has aged very well. And Thancred and Dynamis is my theory video that Thancred may one day learn to use and utilize Dynamis in combat. My issue with these videos though is that when I made them, Dynamis was still a hot topic. And ever since 6.0, it hasn't been mentioned. Well, it's been mentioned a few times, but it's never been seen. So regardless of the fact that Zodiac's barrier is gone, the final days began, we stopped the source of the final days, everything went back to normal, but the barrier is gone now, so Dynamis should have been playing more of a forefront in the game, in my opinion, but it hasn't come up again, which has really annoyed me because it makes it look like a piece of content that was there and then just disappeared, which I'm not really happy about. Imagining Thancred dancing a samba. Yeah. That was the first one you watched. I'm actually glad that's a good one because this is a theory video that I really enjoyed making. And I still find this a very plausible theory because Thancred's disconnection with Aether leaves him open to Dynamis, and he's a very emotional character who also has a great deal of control over his emotions as well. And we saw how he performed when we were in Ultima Thule as well, so I still believe this theory is possible, and Thancred is still wandering around right now, so we haven't even seen him since 6.1, so I'm looking forward to seeing him again. I think he's going to show up probably in 6.4, but we'll find out. Now, this video has mixed reviews when it comes to theory crafters and lore theorists and people who love FF14 lore in the first place. The Last True Warrior of Light is my theory video that states that we are the last true Warrior of Light. Now what I mean by that is, we are gifted with the Echo, but we learned that the Echo is not a gift. It's a lot of people have the potential to have it, you just have to see the right thing happen, which is a meteor shower, in order for the Echo to unlock within you. So it may be passed down genetically, it may just be passed down different ways, we don't really know. But my theory is that without Hydaelyn to give another Blessing of Light, which is what she's been doing to mark her champions, because we get stronger, we have Hydaelyn at our back, we were a very powerful character as a result, but nobody else is going to get Hydaelyn's blessing in the future. There's been other champions, not named the Warrior of Light, but they have been before us. And then we're the latest in the line of champions. Hydaelyn was waiting for us to come around, essentially, but she was giving her blessing to champions throughout history. But we're the last now because Hydaelyn isn't around anymore. So that's mainly what this video is. We're the last true Warrior of Light. So other people may come around to be named the Warrior of Light. The Warrior of Light isn't Hydaelyn's name designation for us. It's a name given by the people. They were given, that name was created basically because after Cartagena, they could only see a silhouette of light of the heroes and champions who fought on Cartagena's plains, which is why they called them the Warriors of Light. But essentially, there's always been champions throughout history that the people have raised up. We're the latest one, but there's going to be no others like us. That's mainly what this video is. It's worth a look if you haven't seen it. Now then, where are we? I didn't make as many videos this year, now, to be honest. Primarily because I was focusing more on proper content. So I wasn't uploading them every 3 days, every week. I tried to upload them as much as I could, but it was mainly focusing on the substance. Now, the Scions after Endwalker and the Ascians after Endwalker. Weren't they also called the Warrior of Light on the first? That's a very good point. They came up with the name Warrior of Light as well on the first. But I think that's mainly coincidence more than anything else. And that might have had Ascian intervention as well. They may have just... The Warrior of Light name may have been coined on the source and the Ascians just brought it over. Because time did proceed differently over there. So they may have had a hand in it. Or even Elidibus. Because he was laying the groundwork for the Warrior of Light for a long time. Now, the Scions after Endwalker and the Ascians after Endwalker is mainly just a... 2 video pieces to outline the members of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn and the members of the Ascians and where they are or where they were the last time we saw them. The Scions video mainly just goes over our main Scions, so the main core 8 or 9 members, exactly where they are. Everybody's scattered to the 4 winds. We're all still helping in our own way, but we're also ensuring that we don't all group together anymore. So we group in groups of 4 and stuff like that. But it's a video that says, well, nobody's really changed positions since then. Although we do know Alizé and Alphanor are going to change positions soon. The only one that leaves out are Urianger and Thancred. We don't know exactly where they are right now. Now, the Ascians after Endwalker. This is a video where I went over a number of the Ascians that are currently MIA. There's a number of theories exactly what happened to these Ascians. One theory is Fandaniel killed them in their sleep or while they weren't looking. The other theory is after Zodiark's demise, they just scattered to the 4 winds and are likely maybe in the other reflections as well, looking after civilizations on the other reflections, because we know that they did tend to frequent the other reflections on a regular basis, and they had the free ability to travel to any of them, even the lesser Ascians. So I'm still of the opinion that the Ascians are out there, the unnamed, or the named ones, but the never seen ones. So I have a feeling we're going to see them again. This is probably one of my favorite videos, Gosetsu's healer job. So if you haven't done this content yet, essentially the role quests of Endwalker accumulated with, or one of them, or rather the healer one, or not the healer one, this was the ranged DPS one if I recall correctly. In the ranged DPS role quest were in, not Kugane, but around Doma. And we find Gosetsu is no longer wielding his samurai sword. Instead, he's wielding a staff in his old age. It suits him better. He can't do his thrusts. He can't do his anything else anymore. So he uses a healer job, which is based out the White Mage or the Conjurer, but uses Eastern elements like talismans and other things like that. So it's something I really enjoyed watching. And I think it opens the path to having the same jobs, but styled differently. So a different style of White Mage with an Eastern influence, and so on and so forth. Let's see. The Watcher video, where I speculate. I made this video before we actually learned more about who the Watcher actually was. But it did maintain its age because I actually did speculate correctly on exactly who the Watcher was in terms of my theory that he was a close friend of Vana back in the day. But we never got his name, unfortunately. But we did find out that he was a study friend of Vana, she always used to visit him. And he was one of the ones who sacrificed himself in order to summon Hydaelyn. Which is why she recreated the facsimile of him in order to guard Zodiac. Let's see, the 12 and 6 point. Yeah, this video I'm not really proud of, to be perfectly honest. I was trying something else, a mixture of camera and a mixture of just talking about a number of different things. Eric Thonios is the Watcher theory. A lot of people actually have that theory, not to be honest. You're not alone, Cogent. You're not alone. A lot of people actually still have that theory. I haven't actually made a video on Pandemonium yet. I will be making a video on that subject as we get closer to 6.4, which is where we'll get the final bit of content. So look forward to that. I have 1,000,001 theories about Pandemonium and Eric Thonios. His question is still unanswered. Skipping this one because I'm still not proud of this video. The future in Elpis is one of my favorite theories, despite the fact this video has only gotten 1.2k views, so barely anybody's seen it. Like, compared to my other videos, it didn't blow up. Primarily because it's a weird theory that is just out of left field. Nobody else really had a theory like this, and a lot of people didn't agree with me. But TLDR, my primary theory of this is, let me click into it actually just to make it show. There's a graph in here. Or a graphic, rather. So, my theory posits that time is going in a causal loop in terms of us, like, we travel to the past, then we tell Vana her future, we return to the present with our answer, and then Hydaelyn gives us the Elpis Realm. So it starts with Hydaelyn gives us the Elpis Realm, we travel to the past, we tell Vana her future, we even give her the name of Hydaelyn, and then we return to the present with our answer. But we've affected the past because we were supposed to, aka the causal loop. Now, I made a graph here somewhere, or maybe this was the only one, was it? No, there it is, there it is. Okay, so this is mainly my theory. My theory is that our connection with Elpis is a constant. So the portal that Elidibus opened with the Crystal Tower on the 1st connected to a point in Elpis that he really didn't know exactly when it was going to connect, but fate determined that it was going to connect to 12,000 years ago at the exact point when Vana was there. But my point is, this portal was opened, but this portal has remained a constant. And my theory is that as the main story progresses on the source in the present, this portal is actually moving forward in time at the same pace as well. So that portal, when we keep going back, for example, in 6.3 when we go back, a number of time has passed even though it doesn't look it. Now my main theory for that is the fact that the, not the Alliance raids, but the Pandemonium raids take place in Elpis. So time is passing because those raids are progressing from one to the next to the next. And the dialogue is proceeding at that point as well. Like, we're exploring the start of Pandemonium, then we're going to the deepest parts of Pandemonium, and then all weird things are happening and going to be part 3. But that's my point. My main point is that our future content is going to be in Elpis. My theory is that the final days is going to erupt, and then we're going to have a portal back to the final days. I mean, we do see time move even in just the Pandemonium storyline. You are very correct. But that's the main thing. So, as you can see with this, like, this is our first time we traveled back to Elpis. This is the portal right now. a bit of time is going to pass and Hermes is going to take the office of Fandaniel. A little bit more time is going to pass and then the final day is going to kick off. We don't have a time frame for when the final day is going to kick off. All that we know is that Meteion is heading towards the end of the universe. The moment she gets there, the Song of Oblivion is going to kick in, it's going to travel, and then it's going to hit us. Or it's going to hit everybody. So it hit the whole universe as far as we're aware, I think. But we don't know how long it's going to take because it doesn't require that Meteion to travel from Aetheris to the end of the universe because there's like 100 or 200 Meteions out there. It only takes one of them to travel to the end of the universe and then start the song. We don't know when that's going to be. That could be a week, a month, a year, a decade. But TLDR, my theory is we're going to get to a point, maybe in 6.4, 6.5, or just before the next expansion, that the time is going to pass enough that the final day is going to kick off. And we're going to travel back to that point. We just randomly go back for a visit and all of a sudden the final day is kicking off. And we end up helping Vana and her group in order to summon Hydaelyn. So that's my theory about the future story and content of Zelda. So if you haven't watched this video, I highly recommend you do it. But as I said, a lot of people agreed with me, but just as many people didn't agree with me. So the 1,200 people there who watched it, I'd say 600 agreed, 600 didn't agree. This video I enjoyed, the Miqo'te naming system, because when I started researching it, it was such a fascinating subject. Pronouncing it was a pain in the head because I thought my tongue was going to jump out of my mouth and just walk away from me and want divorce papers or something. It was pretty horrible to try and pronounce all those names, but it just goes to show this video is a prime example of showing how much detail goes into the lore of FF14 because they went into so much detail on the naming system of a single race that they didn't have to do. They didn't have to do it at all. They could have just said they all have letters before their names or after their names. There you go. They didn't have to go into the mad detail that they did. But I'm happy they did, which is why I'm able to create videos on it. And I always will because I love it. I love the fact that you can just walk anywhere in this game and you can find content like this. Hi Wyrm, glad to catch you live. Love all your videos. I use a lot of your videos to create my FF14 D&D account. Oh, that sounds epic. Like, I've never played D&D. I keep saying to my friends I want to play D&D and I've convinced them to play D&D with me when we go to FanFest. But the fact that you're able to create D&D content with my videos to help you, that is amazing. I'd love to actually hear about that. If you have any videos, I'm gonna actually watch them because that sounds amazing. I think your reasoning is solid and I agree with almost all of it. I just think the final days is way further off in the universe than we think. That's where everybody else disagreed with me, essentially. Which is what your theory is, that it's going to kick off far in the future. We just don't know exactly when it was. The only time of reference we have is that we travel back from Elpis towards the present. And we see two events happen. We see Fandaniel taking we see Hermes taking the office of Fandaniel, and then we see the final days kicking off. We don't see exactly how much time has passed at that point. We intersect a point halfway through, which is where we see Vana walking through the streets when everything happens, and then we just proceed back to the present. We don't know how much time has passed though. It could be years, it could be decades. We just don't know. These people are essentially immortal. They live a long, long time. Alright, where else are we? We're almost done actually, because I'm nearly through all my videos. The Brood of Midgard Stormer is a video that's aged very well. The only thing we didn't know about was Azdaia, and happily we're going to learn a lot more about her now. But I also posited in that video that Tiamat is going to be a central character of 7.0. Because my theory is that she and her brood, after they flew away from Pagalthan, is they went back to Mericidia. So I have a feeling we're going to see Tiamat there. So I think, even though a new expansion comes along, Vitra is going to be maintaining his control over Davnir and everything else. He's not going to be a central character anymore. We're going to see his sister. Hopefully. Now, yes, my future jobs theory. So this video is something everybody, well, a lot of people agreed with actually. My future job mechanic theory is essentially positing a method for the developers to add new jobs to the game without adding new jobs to the game. Do Assassins procreate if they are immortal, or is it just a creation magics? I'm not too familiar with the past previous. We have no idea, Ahmed, to be honest. We are going to assume so, because we know that Erithonios was born. So we know procreation is like that. You get a mummy and a daddy, and then you end up with a child. So their procreation is the same as ours. I mean, they're based on us. Oh yeah, regarding the remix I'm actually playing. So this remix is from a channel, which is actually in the description of this stream right now if you want the link to it. But it's essentially this one here. It's just a channel, it's a small channel called Final Fantasy and Chill. I only found it a couple of months ago. But they've been doing remixes of so much music from the Final Fantasy series and even other series, and making relaxing little themes about it. They've been making some of my best and favorite videos, or favorite music, into remixes of relaxing themes like this. So I knew it was going to be a perfect background music for this stream anyway. But the link is in the description to his channel, or their channel. So I highly recommend you do it, because they've been doing some mad work and they deserve more subs. Let's see. Yeah, so my future jobs theory is a theory that they can add new jobs without adding new jobs. Now, what I mean by this is you have the warrior, for example, which is a tanking job. But my theory postulates that you can add a sub job to the warrior job itself. So it's a tank that's primarily a tank, but you could also add a sub job to it that branches off from it that could allow it to be a DPS. So a DPS with a two-handed axe. And still wields plate armor, for example. Or even leather armor. But it's an example of being able to add a new job that branches out from an already existing job. So it doesn't differ that much. The skills would slightly differ. So it's like changing stances from a tank stance to a DPS stance. But I postulated it as a theory of a way of actually being able to emphasize the different elements of the jobs that we currently have in different ways. So warrior, for example, as I've said, is a tank, but has a lot of damage potential. So its new damage job could be focused on its damaging potential. White mage, for example, is a healer, but you could also focus on its damaging or cleansing aspects in order to make a caster DPS, for example. So this was mainly made because we're running out of jobs to add, essentially. So this is where the next 3 videos come in here, which I made early on, primarily because I wanted to see if I was right. So I made 3 videos. The next caster job in 7.0, the next tank job in 7.0, and the next ranged job in 7.0. So in these 3 videos, I postulated 1 job from the Final Fantasy series and 1 job based on the MMO RPG genre in general. So I postulated 2 casters, 2 tanks, 2 ranged that could be potential candidates for the next jobs in FF14. I want to get a new stone or combine 2 stones together, like combining white mage and black mage, kind of like FF11. You're not alone in that fact. A lot of people have wanted a combination of jobs or just stop adding jobs in general, because a lot of people are actually in your camp. They don't want new jobs added because... How many jobs do we have now? I think we have 19 jobs. That's a hell of a lot of work if you wanted to level them all to max level. That's a hell of a lot of work to add them. And if you think of other MMOs, like particularly MMOs of FF14's level, like World of Warcraft, for example. World of Warcraft doesn't have as many classes as Final Fantasy XIV has jobs. And WoW is a lot older. So think about that for a moment. It has way more races, of course, but essentially, we have more jobs in FF14 than most MMOs actually have in their entire inventory. Even ones that are much older than ours. Like, games that would be much easier to add a job to or a class to, they can't hold a candle. We have some of the highest numbers of classes. It's not even combining the classes, just the jobs. We have one of the highest numbers in all the MMOs. A sword whip. That's actually one I postulated in, I recall. Rather invest in expanding glamour for current jobs. There's another video actually further up where I'll explain some of what that is as well. But essentially, yeah, in my casters, I postulated, what was the next caster? Oh, not caster, yeah, so caster. What was the new casters? I can't remember. Oh, yeah.
Never really
Sorry. So, yeah, my two posits were based on the Final Fantasy series was the Time Mage. I'd really love that to be a thing. That uses time to damage enemies, uses a bubble AoE shields, and caster with a proc similar to Dancer. Although, and going to the Necromancer as well, which is based off games like EverQuest and Guild Wars 2, for example, which have a Necromancer class. And we've already seen the Necromancer. But there's actually something I want to bring up as well. Like, I'm basing my Necromancer, for example, on the Void. So this is where Zero comes back in, because we now know Zero is an all-rounder. It's entirely possible that she has a healer job or a caster job as well, in order for it to be a proper all-rounder. So we may see her actually using dark magic and void magic to cast spells. So I can't wait to see that, to see if it actually looks anything like my theory of a Necromancer. But going back to this actually as well, this is something I forgot to mention. One thing I got about the live letter is the job changes. And they were removing dots again from a lot of the jobs. Like the Paladin is losing its dot and it's getting higher damage potential. But they seem to be going to town on dots. They're removing all the dots from the game. From all the classes that have removed it and all as well. I kind of want that outfit as well. People are still screaming that they want that Necromancer outfit, which is why they're screaming about the doll that's appearing in 6.3 as well. But yeah, this video is the least, it didn't age as well as the other two, primarily because my Necromancer was focused around dots. It was a replacement for the old Summoner because Summoner doesn't use dots anymore. But the developers seem to be trying to phase dots out entirely. So I have a feeling that whatever the next job's going to be, it's actually not going to be, if it's the Necromancer, it's not going to be focused around dots like I postulated. But NBC, to be honest, I think they're just going to remove it. The fact that they removed Paladins, which I can kind of see why. Ran would probably know more about this. He's a Paladin main. I miss the old Summoner. But it seems like they're just trying to remove dots entirely. I think if I was to postulate a theory as to why they're removing dots, I think dots actually contribute a lot to processing server side as well, because it just adds another layer of data coming in and out for dots to be tracked in real time between user and server and back to user. So I have a feeling that removing dots would actually free up a lot of resources, which allows them to change the game in other ways, which are resource intensive. So that could be the reason for removing dots. So I'm wondering how much they actually saved by not having summoners do dots anymore. That's constantly reporting back and forth to a server. I want my Paladin to have more party protection. I really hope they do that, because if you get a Time Wizard, I'll get Baby Dragon. Paladin is known as a protector, exactly, yeah. Paladin should have more abilities like that. I mean, they have the wings, which I can't remember their name. But more spheres of protection like that would be great for Paladin. But I think Paladins in general, right now, are happy that they're just getting damage potency increases. Okay. So my next ranged was going to be Chemist and Ranger. The Chemist is an idea for a job I had about a healer. But the main reason I made it my next physical range DPS is because I don't see us getting another healer. I think we're done on healers. I don't think we're ever going to get another healer ever again. So my theory for the chemist was a chemist mixing abilities and throwing projectiles with a number of different effects and being able to utilize a ranged DPS like that. Similar to a dancer's way as well. They can augment the abilities of the people around them as well. But the ranger is my favorite.
Welcome to Self.
Which is based primarily on the fact that machinists came around in Heaven's Ward. Everybody was happy about that. But people wanted like a solid gun wielding class. I mean, they have a gun, they shoot the gun, but they're not about the gun essentially. They're about the inventions, the toolkits and stuff like that. The gun is just their sidearm essentially. People want a solid class that's based around the gun, just the same way that they want an offshoot of the bard that instead of focusing on the songs is focusing on the bow and the bow techniques. But my main reason for positing that ranger is going to be a thing, or musketeer rather, is because musketeer was theorized long ago and is still highly likely to have been a job that they planned to add but they scrapped at the last minute. Now the main evidence for that in this video you'll see as well, I recommend watching it, is that you'll see in the Coral Tower of Limsa, there's just like an empty void where a second job should have been. So you can see the Marauders on one side and then you have like a musketeer desk right here, which could have been for their trainers, and then it's just an empty void. And then you see down below where people are training, more rifles scattered around everywhere. So this video essentially proves that these rifles exist. These bolt action rifles, they're there, but nobody utilizes them. These rifles are lying around and nobody in Limsa uses them. They use sidearms pistols with 2 shots, but they don't utilize these rifles. I've never seen an NPC use one. But that's mainly my theory, is that the Musketeer Guild actually does exist, but they left Limsa before the events of FF14. So I highly recommend watching that video as well. Now, we'll go on about the jobs. It's too early to talk about jobs, to be honest. We're not going to hear about jobs until FanFest anyway, so I look forward to that, and I look forward to seeing if any of my guesses are going to be announced in the Japanese FanFest. Lazy NPCs not using rifles. Damn truth. The rifles are right there and they're using their sidearms. Take out the rifle and defend yourselves with it. What server am I on? I'm on the Odin server, which is on the Light Data Center. Healing in gameplay and lore. So this is probably one of my favorite videos, but also one of my least viewed, which kind of upsets me actually, because this is a topic I really love. So essentially what this video is, it states the differences between healing in lore and healing in gameplay. So for example, you're in a fight or an alliance raid and somebody in your party HP hits 0, they fall down, you cast resurrection, they're raised back up. Resurrection is only a gameplay mechanic. NPCs can't use abilities like that. And resurrection, despite the fact that it's called revive or resurrection, whatever, is not actually resurrection in that sense. We can't bring the dead back to life. What's actually happening in gameplay is when somebody's HP hits 0, they faint. And when they're released, that's an emergency jump through the life stream and back to your save point essentially in order to be back to safety because you've passed out essentially. But that's essentially what that is. Question, will you ever do a video about the myth of why lalas are called... I don't know why lalas are called potatoes or onions or anything else. I am proud to be a potato. I will always be a potato. I actually am planning a video on fruit and veg in FF14. No joke. Like the staple foods of FF14. So look forward to that as well. In terms of the myth of why lalas are called potatoes, I'm actually curious as well what the genesis of potatoes and calling lalas potatoes. I'm assuming because they're small, But this was never a thing leading up to the release at 1.0 or during 1.0. They weren't called potatoes or popotos or anything else. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Damn right. Back to healing though. So essentially, this video posits, and I really highly recommend watching it if you haven't watched it. But this video states the difference between lore and gameplay healing. So essentially, we've seen characters die, and despite the fact that we have a resurrection on our hotbar, we can't resurrect them because resurrection is not an ability in lore. The ability to resurrect the dead does not exist in the lore of FF14. It's only a gameplay mechanic in order for us to raise our allies. And even then, as I said, when your HP is 0, you don't die, you pass out. That's unconsciousness, not death. So that's really worth the watch. I highly recommend you watch that if you haven't seen it. Here's a video that people really didn't like me for. So I won't be surprised if people use them as lures to catch a vegetarian. If that ends up in a D&D, I want to see that. Yeah, so older Alliance raids need work. I postulated that the older Alliance raids were showing their age, which they definitely are, because people are steamrolling through Labyrinth of the Ancients and Circus Tower, and World of Darkness for that matter. And I postulated that these raids just need some work. They need to be changed. They just need like a Savage version even, or just modify them that they actually feel like raids again, like Alliance raids. Because Alliance raids just get easier and easier the older you get, but I think people are just happy to let them be like that. So a lot of people didn't agree with what I said here. Some people agreed, other people didn't. People just like to jump into those first 3 Alliance raids, steamroll through them in like 10 minutes and then just jump out with their daily experience and what have you. Which I can understand. But I guess I'm just sentimental because I remember these raids back when they were current. Like I remember Labyrinth of the Ancients with 2 tanks. It wasn't difficult. It felt like having 6 tanks in that raid was weird. It still is. But it was nice. I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed those raids when they were current. I liked being able to, or having to click the towers during the King Behemoth, for example. I miss stuff like that. The raids just really are showing their age, but a lot of people just seem to be content with that. So I will leave that to everybody else to decide. Now, The Void as a Endwalker is a video I made right before the release of 6.2, if I recall correctly. So you can see it's 4 months ago, so roughly 4 months between then and now. I started shortly after Shadowbringers came out. Ah, so you're in the sweet spot. 6 tanks. 6 tanks in the Alliance race was nice, but it would only existed in Labyrinth of the Ancients. Circus Tower and World of Darkness, they regressed it to 3 tanks. And they changed Labyrinth of the Ancients to 3 tanks as well. Labyrinth of the Ancients felt weird for that point. Like during 2.3, when we had Circus Tower come out and they changed everything to 3 tanks. Labyrinth of the Ancients honestly felt really strange for that point. I can't really remember exactly why it was, but if I recall correctly, during the Behemoth fight, for example, it was the tanks that always went out to click the towers. It seems counterintuitive to how people do today. They want the tanks to stay on the boss for maximum of time and all. But they wanted the tanks to click the towers during King Behemoth, and then with only 3 tanks you couldn't do that. So, and then you had healers and DPS fighting about, I don't want to click the tower and stuff like that. So it was a weird kind of transition period. It only existed in 2.3 and 2.4. The fights got significantly easier because people's eye levels were going up. The Void as a Endwalker is, as I've said, a video that I created shortly before the release of 6.2, just to explain exactly how much we knew about the Void, how much we do know. And it's aged rather well, despite the fact it's only 4 months old. Most of the information is still current. And we did learn about it, a lot more about the Void in 6.2, so I may do a follow-up to this. Maybe the Void as of 7.0 or after the events, but so much is happening with the Void right now, I wouldn't make another video about it because we're still learning so much. But I did recap it in 2 of my popular videos, which is 6.1 main story recap and 6.2 main story recap, which people seem to really enjoy. This is probably one of my most popular videos as of recently, which is what's next to explore in 7.0 and beyond. Now, I think I have a map open here. This is my created approximation of what the world actually looks like in Aetheris. So, based on the land masses we currently know about and everything we have the current map of the world, which this still annoys me and annoys everybody else. Sorry, belting off for some reason. But yeah, this is the map of the world as we know it, based on the images of Aetheris that we've seen on the moon. Because you can see the new world and you can see Mericidia on the moon. Because Aetheris is actually turning. If you stand on the moon and look at Aetheris, the planet is actually rotating. So you'll be able to see the continents of the new world and Mericidia. I wouldn't be surprised if everything goes boom from combining the void with the light. I wouldn't be surprised. It's like Star Trek with matter and antimatter. Boom. Like two opposing forces that are constantly opposing themselves, cancelling each other out in explosive results. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. We did get a glimpse of the future if that was the true future and not a separate timeline. That's kind of true, we did, because the rejoining of the first to the source is what caused that calamity to happen, and it caused the Aether to stagnate. But what Golbez could be trying to do is a clash of the source and the 13th, aka the void, which is kind of like a rejoining, but with darkness this time, so that would quicken the Aether. So that could be explosive, as you said. That could cause a calamity that could literally fracture the world. But yeah, where to next is a video that postulates the locations that we're going to be going, based on evidence such as what we currently know about the locations in game, which have been established in lore since 1.0 and beyond. 2.0 elaborated on the new world and Mericidia and stuff like that. But these two are the likely locations for 7.0. The new world and Mericidia, in terms of new lands that we're going to be going to. But there's other lands around the Brian Foss and North Arch that we're likely going to be going to as well. Koshu and the lands beyond it are a very likely candidate as well. I highly recommend you watch this video if you haven't, because it goes into a lot of the smaller locations that you'd kind of miss. But my main theory for this, just a quick TLDR, is once the Scions broke up, for example, like the main Scions started going to separate ways, but they stayed mainly around the locations that we know about. But all the other Scions, like Clements and stuff like that, like Clements has gone to learn in Ishgard, all the other Scions have spread out. They're going all over the world. Some of them are going to Corvus. Some of them are trying to actually find a way to Mericidia. A couple of others are trying to get to Erzland, which is the ancestral home of the Rogan race. They're spreading all over the world. So our Scion members, or former Scion members, the ones that have always been in the background, are likely our key to visiting these locations. So I'd highly recommend watching that. And that ties into that video then of the other Scions of the Seventh Dawn, where I go over all the other Scions that are constantly in the background, constantly helping us out, who never get a forefront in the story except for a few set characters like Arenvald, for example. So I highly recommend watching this as well. It's one of my favorite videos. After the Calamity is definitely a video worth looking at as well, because I researched the entire topic of the Calamity and pretty much outlined what happened right after the Calamity and for the next 5 years. Because as you know, the Calamity was ushered in with the closing of 1.0, and then 2.0 opened with a time gap of 5 years later. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Dalamud falling the way it did wasn't supposed to happen. The original developers of 1.0 wanted Dalamud to be the last great raid. They wanted all raids to be building up to assaulting or going to Dalamud in order to fight everything within it, and then finding like Bahamut in the center of it or something like that. They had a lot of different ideas for what Dalamud was, a lot different than what happens, but after Yoshi P and the other developers took over, they needed a catalyst and something to usher in 2.0 by closing 1.0, and that's when they decided to crash Dalamud. So crashing Dalamud was a recent decision before the closing of 1.0. It was their catalyst and their way of just ushering time in to show the difference between 1.0 and 2.0, which I'll go into in a video in a few minutes. This is probably my least performing video. I made a video about the lore of All Saints Week from start to finish. I enjoyed this video. I actually really liked it making it, but nobody seemed to enjoy it. It only got like 199 views and it's well over a month old. So I think I learned my lesson that people don't like videos about events. I might make others. I didn't make one about Christmas. I actually planned to, about Starlight, but I decided not to. Primarily because people didn't seem to be interested in it, so I learned my lesson. I've started making short videos as well, like with little topics that don't deserve a big video. Well, they do deserve a big video, but it would be me talking out of my bum for like 8 minutes or so about stuff that doesn't really concern anything. So I decided just to make small videos like this, to break down a simple little question like this. And this is the question of why there's Ninja in the Crystal Tower, which is a good video. I enjoyed this. It's only like 2 minutes and 18 seconds long. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you do. I'll be doing other things like this for small little lore tidbits and questions, and I have a bunch of others planned. One of my latest videos, and one I'm actually really happy about, is one of my theory videos. This video here, which is called...
This video?
Yeah, this video. Love the All Saints video. I'm glad you liked it, July. Thank you. Yeah, YouTube Shorts is something I've actually looked at doing. I attempted to do one a while ago, but I wasn't able to get it to work properly. I may actually end up doing shorts eventually, but for now I think I'm going to stick with the standard fare I've been doing, which is diving more in depth. But I think the smaller ones and similar to shorts is something I may do invest in 2023. This is one of my latest, or my last theory video of the year, which is a theory video that posits that there's going to be a time skip, and a lot of you have mentioned this already, that there's going to be a time skip in 7.0 to show the adjustments to the game that is going to happen. So if you haven't watched this video, I highly recommend you do. But TLDR is that with 7.0 and the expansion, there's going to be a massive graphical change to the game. So the graphic engine is getting a major overhaul. They're changing shading, they're changing lighting, they're changing environmental pixelization. They're changing everything across the board. Character models are going to go through a massive change as well. So my theory postulates that there's going to be a time skip of like 5 years, 10 years, for example, between the end of Endwalker, its final patch, and the release of 7.0, the new expansion. And this would show why all of a sudden we go from FF14 looking the way it is currently now, and how it looks drastically different in 7.0. They use this excuse to show the difference between 1.0 and 2.0, which I mentioned in this video. 1.0 and 2.0 are technically two games because they're both made with different game engines, which is why they look so different and act so different and feel so different. And all the models had to be changed as well. But this video is hardly worth a look if you haven't yet, because this is a theory I still highly subscribe to, and it would also allow us to age up the main characters of the story. So for example, Alphino and Alize gaining like 5 years of age, growing up, getting a lot taller, maybe growing their hair out, chopping their hair off, I don't know. Any way you want, but the character models are all going to go through drastic changes, so everybody's going to look different anyway. So this theory could be a good way of showing why that change happened, because we haven't seen these characters in like a million years. A theory I came up with actually after I made this video is that, for example, at the beginning of the expansion, or maybe at the last patch of Endwalker, for example, we end up traveling to one of the reflection worlds. So maybe we travel to, I don't know, I can't remember, the 11th? So we travel to one of those reflections anyway. For some reason we end up traveling to one of those. Y'shtola has figured out how to make travel possible, or it was an accident. But we end up traveling to one of these reflections in the last patch of Endwalker. Then the expansion releases, and then we quickly find our way back from that reflection to the source. But what we didn't account for is time is actually passing a lot quicker on that reflection. Similar to how the first was working, time was moving faster until it came in line with the source. But that world that we traveled to was actually traveling a lot faster. So when we were only there for like a week or two, it turns out we were there for like 5 years or something. So we go back and everything's different, and we're like, oh my god, what the hell happened? You disappeared for 5 years, where the hell have you been? And Alizé is like up here or something. But that's a good example of how you could get something like that to work with a time skip. Like a very subtle time skip that doesn't look like it's actually happening, but actually did happen. Or it could be a snafu of how we restore the 13th. When we restore the 13th to how it was, time zooms forward for some reason and we don't really know why. By the time we return back to that portal, years have passed. Maybe that was our price for restoring the 13th. But yeah, if you haven't watched this video, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite theories. The other guys is another video I made, or rather it's my last proper creation video, where I go over the status of some of the lesser known antagonists of the FF14 storyline. I highly recommend this because I enjoyed researching this one a lot. And I'm hoping some of these characters will actually appear in the future. Some of them I really want to stomp the life out of with my own 2 feet. But the rest of them, like Catboy over here, I really hope I see him. And then my final video is just my patch 6.2 main story recap, which I'm surprised only has 518 views, but as 6.3 approaches, I assume that's going to get more views, but it only released 11 days ago, so I don't really care about views either way, but I really hope people enjoy my videos just in that regard. If you haven't seen that yet though, feel free to watch it because I go into a lot of detail about different lore elements. But essentially, that is it. I went through all of that in order to get all these videos done in a year's time, starting with, they said what, like 2 days after the new year, and then proceeding through all these videos. I got a good deal done in a year. Like compared to what I was doing before, where I was banging out videos like after 3 days, after a week. A lot of good videos, but I missed a lot of substance in these videos. A lot of them felt rushed and just weird, to be honest. So I was glad to be able to slow down. Like I enjoyed this video, the armors of FF14. These are videos I hope to actually focus on again. I only found your video because I googled FF14 lore. That's what I hope to see. If somebody googles FF14 lore, if I come up as one of the main sources, I'm happy about that. I know there's loads of channels that actually do the same thing. One thing is, actually, I don't watch. If you do craft your own D&D campaign, you have a great world you can build. I think I need to learn how to play first. Once I do, maybe I'll be able to actually do it myself. I really need to get just a feel of what D&D is like, which I look forward to next year, once my friends actually do it for me. So that's another thing I'm waiting for FanFest for. But yeah, in terms of my videos, I actually don't watch the content of other creators, because myself, like everybody else, we're our own worst critics. So if I start watching other people's content, for example, I'd start judging my own videos negatively, which I don't want to do. So I don't watch actually other content creators of FF14. I actively avoid them as much as I can. I do watch creators of other like games, like World of Warcraft, for example. Despite the fact that I haven't played WoW in God knows how long, I still watch content creators of it because they give me a lot of bright ideas in terms of how I can improve and stuff like that. Rand, this came up a while ago. We plan to do it, or I want to do a D&D campaign, like a one-day campaign or a one-night campaign. Primarily because I want to learn how to play D&D, because no one I know plays D&D aside from the people I know in FF14. Yoshi P played a Black Mage for a D&D campaign. That I do not doubt in the slightest. I do know he's planning to play Mahjong on Christmas again, if I recall correctly. I love Mahjong, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. But anyway, that's my entire stream and exactly what I wanted to go through. So I just mainly wanted to cover all the elements and a number of different things as well. But I suppose I should sign off just going about what I plan to do for the future. So I'm taking a break for the rest of the year, which is like 8 or 9 days. 8 days, give or take. And then I'm going to be making my first video a couple of days after the new year. I actually planned a different video. I was going to make a video based on the Allagan Empire, but after seeing that Eureka is based on Allag, I'm going to wait a while because I want to see what Eureka gives us in terms of Allagan content. But I am making another video, which, this is going to sound weird, but it came to me in a dream. I'm not joking. I literally, about 2 weeks ago, I was half asleep and a thought just jumped into my head and I was like, oh my god, that's a great idea. Wait, no, yes, no. Oh my god, I'll make a video. And I'm going to make that video now, but yeah, I have plenty of videos to come. I'm not going to be banging them out as fast as I can. That's not the sort of thing I like to do anymore. It's stressful, and frankly, I make videos that I hate if I do that. Even I can't afford to watch them. Like, if I look at them, I just go, oh my god, I can't afford to watch this. I put myself in your shoes, essentially. You're someone clicking onto my video either to watch one of my videos for enjoyment or for the informational aspect. So I try to emphasize both of them to make content as enjoyable as possible, but also as informative as possible with a high amount of quality in it. So that's essentially what I'm aiming for in terms of the videos I create. I'm happy to have been able to get to 3K subscribers, but I don't really track my subscriber numbers either, just like I don't do my views. I mean, it's good if they get high views and high subscribers, which means my content is doing well. But as I've always said, even if one person watches my channel and gets something informative out of the video, I did what I wanted. This is my favorite aspect about FF14 at this point. It used to be raiding, and now it's content creation. So I look forward to doing that, but I also look forward to streaming a lot more. But I'm also conscious of the fact that I'm not a very entertaining person when it comes to streaming. And streaming an MMORPG is not the most entertaining thing to do. So, for example, I'm probably still logged in here, am I? Yep, I am. So, you're watching me walk around, you're watching me queue up for things. You're watching me talk about, oh, what's in my inventory? Wait, this mount is cool. What's this? I'm not an Asmongold or anything else like that. If I was you, I'd be turning the channel off right now. I'm not watching it. So I wouldn't blame you, to be honest. Like, watching somebody else play an MMO is probably one of the more boring aspects of YouTube. I can't do it myself. If I see somebody playing an MMO, I couldn't sit to watch them for more than a minute because I'd easily get bored. I'd rather play it myself, which is essentially what we play MMOs for. Which is why I focus on the lore aspects and not the streaming aspects. Except for what I just outlined here, which is primarily from a lore perspective. Well, anyway, I'm just going to finish it there because it's getting late and I've already been monologuing for over 2 hours now. So I'll leave everybody to do what they... I don't think I've talked to Arya actually in a while. If anybody doesn't remember her, she is one of the main protagonists in the Raid Mage storyline. Oh, have you come to care of my progress? I'll have to push even harder knowing you'll be stopping by to see how far I've come. How are you doing, Arya? I hear you've been busy rescuing the people of Garlemald. The Adventurers Guild has been positively buzzing with the exploits of the Elsewhere contingent. Sweet. I have no ties to the Empire itself, but I'd like to think that as an Alamegan, Rune, I'm just going to call him Rune. Rune, wherever he may be, is smiling that little smile of his. Once Yorzi's troubles quiet down, he should be returning from his pilgrimage to pick up my training where we left off. And I'll need to keep practicing if my skills are to remain sharp between now and then. Fair enough. I do like her model and her raw look. I love the rapier that she uses as well, primarily because it has a lot of lore information about it as well. But anyway, that is everything regarding this stream. I hope you enjoyed actually watching, and I hope anything I did or anything I said, anything I showed you was informative or at least enjoyable. But I just do want to emphasize that I'm going to be making loads more content in 2023. I'm going to be making loads more lore videos, both big, small, and also gigantic. One of the ones I'm working on at the moment is actually going to span out to be huge. It's on a subject that a lot of people have covered, but I'm covering it in a completely different way. So, oh, Miko, sorry you missed it, man. I'm sorry, but you can watch it after. It should be uploaded anyway. But I'm glad everybody enjoyed it. I hope to actually stream a bit more. Like, I think I'll probably do it every couple of months or so, just to cover the videos that I actually did outline. And maybe if we get new live letters as well. So maybe I will combine it with a new live letter that comes out. And then I'll just go over the videos that I'd uploaded until that point. And then we'll make this a regular thing, I think. But it's the 23rd of December, 9:10 in the evening. I'm sure you've all got loads of things to do, loads of things to sleep on, and then we have a stressful holiday ahead of us. So everybody, I just want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And just try not to stress out. I know this year's been horrible. Last year was horrible. 2020 was a stress bag waiting to happen, and then it just blew up. Nobody liked it. But just stay positive. Just look at everything positive and negative, and just look at it through a positive lens, rather, like stoicism. And we'll all do all right. That's what I'm trying to do. All right, everybody, I wish you the very best. And as I said earlier, if you're looking for the soundtrack, I've left a link in the description. So it's this group here, Final Fantasy and Chill. They make so much music, like modified versions of Final Fantasy music, and they do it really well. And it's good for streams like this because these are modified enough that they won't set off the algorithm, for example. Otherwise, this stream might have been taken down. But everybody, I wish you, once again, best wishes.